So America was started from people who wanted freedom, and they wanted freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom to worship God in however they wanted. They believed in God. Okay, now they may have had all kinds of different sects and all kinds, just like today, guys. You got all kinds of different sects, churches, and Christianity, and Mormonism, and Catholicism, and all this other stuff. Okay, so no one was perfect, but they had a fundamental belief in God, that God had given them inalienable rights. And so they came to America, and by coming to America from a lot of European countries, including Britain also being one of the biggest slave countries in the world at that point, including China, Africa, and Britain were the top three slave countries in the world at that time. People think that, America is just like the birthland of slavery. You just don't know anything about history if that's what you honestly think. Okay, what was significantly different was a international trade called slave trade. This was very different because before then, the Chinese, guess who they enslaved? Pretty much the Chinese. The African Americans, guess who they enslaved? Well, African Americans. They enslaved black people, enslaved black people. Okay, Chinese people enslaved Chinese people, and white people enslaved white people up in Britain. Okay, and the British people went down. The Europeans went down to Africa and said, "Hey, you guys are into slaves. Well, will you trade us for slaves?" Okay, we want black slaves. Okay, so Europeans went to Europe and said, "Hey, we want slaves." They were trading them for like glass beads, animals, livestock, and grains and spices and all kinds of things like that. People who ruled the lands, kings and governors who ruled big parts of Africa, would round up African people and sell them on the docks to white people. Okay, this is the truth of how this got started. The idea that fat white dudes went to Africa and chased the fastest, most athletic, people all around their country, their land, what I'm saying, and caught them and rallied them up and got them on a boat. That did not happen. Okay, now that's not saying that the white guys that came down were in some way justified at all, but it was definitely a business deal of two parties, one of which was black, one of which was white. So without a doubt, the president, the first presidents, the founders of the country all had slaves. Now, here's the thing that I want to make note of. There were many writings from Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Not, I wouldn't say many, but there are a few where they distinctly talked against slavery. They said, like, this isn't right, and it seems like there needs to be a better way. You can look those things up. Those things are all known American history, just like it is known that they had slaves. And so, yeah, there's no doubt that we started the country. We fought for freedom. We fought for liberty. We fought for rights. We fought for God. We fought for God and country. And at the same time, we had slaves. The country, was started in such a way that, to me, slavery is a really, really bad thing. And man, it is like a big black eye on America. Now, have we tried to cover that up through history? Probably. What was the intent there? Was it, conspiracy and all that? I don't think so. But I think that what logically happened was historians, as they went about writing history, tried to talk about the things that were more positive, that would encourage people in the country, versus, because you could write a history book on every negative thing that we did, of every horrible thing we did, just like I could talk about your life, about every horrible thing you've ever done, every horrible thought you've ever thought, every horrible thing you ever did or said or treated somebody, or, were a certain way to somebody. Like, we could talk about that, right? But we don't. We talk about what, and you want to be judged, just like I do, based on the things that I do well, based on my goods, not my bads, right? And so I think it's based on that kind of logical documentation that was done. Now, when you also look at history of Rome, history of Spain, history of the Persians when they were in power, history of the Babylonians, the history was written in a very similar way. Did they have slaves in a lot of those times? Yes. Did they have, rapes and things that they were doing bad? Yes. So what I am saying is not trying to justify, but I am trying to put a proper balance on what was done from a historical perspective in the United States. The crux of what I want to say is that Christians in this country led the way of saying, we cannot be a country like this. We cannot allow this. We may be in the North, or we may be in certain states or provinces or territories where slavery is not allowed, but we cannot allow this in those other territories under a good conscience and know that that is going on in, that people are being traded like their property. And if we are going to say that we have a constitution that believes inalienable rights for all people, well, those are people. And Christians in this country said, we cannot stand for the way Africa did it, for the way China did it, for the way Britain did it. We want to change. And so there was such an uproar that people said, you know what? I don't even know slaves. I've never seen a slave, or I haven't seen a slave in years, but I am willing to leave my house, leave my farm, leave my wife, leave my children, or worse yet, have my 17 or 18-year-old boy walk out onto the battlefield with me with overalls, a straw hat, and a musket and a bayonet, and go fight, the redcoats or whatever they were called, go fight the South, and to try to say we will die believing in what we believe and what this country was built on. And the very fact that there are not slaves today is a ridiculous testament to the godliness and holy audacity of our ancestors, that they said, dude, we can't keep doing this. Guys, this country's only been around for 250 years. It's not like that happened thousands of years ago. That was not that many generations ago where people fought for that. Now, yes, it went from that to systemic discrimination and blah, blah, blah. And that went on for another, 100 years or so. I don't know what the math is on that, but it went on for a long time. And that was horrible and wrong as well. But once again, as a country, people started rising up and saying, you know what? This is wrong. These are real people. How can we do this? How can we be like this? How can we say, have a national anthem and have, a Star-Spangled Banner and have our Constitution and not treat all people equal? And this went for women's rights, women's rights, Black people, Asian people, Jewish people, all of them. Not only did we stand up, not only did we have the gall to say, we cannot let this happen. These things are not the ways of God. These things are not the ways of a righteous nation. We didn't just do it in talk, but faith without works is dead. And so we said, we will put our hand to the grindstone. We will do it to the death to annihilate this from our country. Not only did all that happen, but we actually won. Do you know what other people did around the world when they started seeing America stand up against slavery? They started saying, you know what? That's what we think. We think that. We just didn't have the balls to say anything. When we stood against racism with Martin Luther King, other countries started saying, you know what? This is wrong. We can't do this, And so that is the real history of this country, in my opinion. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. And I get it. There's the devil's in the details, and there's a million underlying stories underneath that. But I am telling you, the very fact that that me, an Asian American and an African American can sit in a coffee shop and have an open debate is all the evidence that I need that this country has done an amazing job dealing with racism, dealing with slavery, moving us forward. And that is why we are the best superpower the world has ever seen. I'll see you on the next video, guys. Appreciate you guys. I'll be here every single day.